Good evening. My name is MacKenzie Wilson. Welcome to a anticipated, long-awaited, back from a break, Alberta Landlord Shoptalk show. I've been off for a few weeks, just kind of focusing, unplugged a bit, COVID burnout. Just back here, and really excited to be back here. I've taken some questions from our community. We've been growing lots since we've last gone on Shoptalk here. And I've taken some really big burning questions. I got a great panel tonight. I got some preferred partners, some experienced landlords tuned up. So we've got eviction experts, property manager of over 200 doors, and everyone in between. So we've got a lot of experience coming to the table tonight for this show. Yeah, that's about it. Some other quick announcements. I've been playing around with a format for the show as we go into the fall, and I want to really kind of question the community, you guys, and see what you want and provide some feedback to help me shape it going forward, so we're still providing the best value. So this format that we've been using is the panel format, which is great. It is a bit of a longer show, as we typically average around an hour, which I know sometimes it's a bit tough for some people to kind of consume that content. So looking at different ways to maybe shorten that, get a little more focused sessions. Another way I was looking at doing is provide a link so people could submit a question before each of our shows. And if you have a question, you can submit it and get it queued up for our show. And knowing that your question's on the show would give you more interest to tune in live during that show and get that value and that feedback you need to help you out with your landlord or tenant situation. So there's another idea. So if you've got ideas or you like what we're talking about, let me know. I need to hear back from you guys, the community, and we'll shape the show going forward on what works best for the community at large. So with that notice, let's bring in some folks. I lost Bill, he walked away, but that's okay, we'll add him in last. So we've got Andrea Warkentin. Hey Andrea, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Perfect. We've got Don with Edmonton Eviction Services. Don, thanks for joining us as well. And then this gentleman, some of you guys might know him as Uncle Bill, but Bill Biko over at theeducatedlandlord.com. Bill, thanks for joining us as well. How are you doing tonight?
Great evening, everybody.
Perfect. Perfect. So a long time no see. We've got a lot of new faces. I think since the last time you guys have all been on the show with me, we've added probably a couple hundred new folks to the group at least. Your 30-second intros. I'm going to be rapid. I'm going to be fire. I'm going to give you strictly 30 seconds. And Andrea, you're first. Who are you?
Well, my name is Andrea Warkentin with Realty Experts Group here in Central Alberta, and I'm a realtor, licensed property manager, and I'm also a real estate investor.
Perfect. And well over 200 doors I think you've got managed right now. Is that correct with your portfolio?
Yes, that's right.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay, Dawn, down with Edmonton Eviction Experts, or Services, sorry, I want to call you the expert. I know you're the expert. If they don't know who you are, Dawn, what's the 30-second pitch about you?
Oh, muted?
Oh, you are muted, Dawn. I don't have any audio for you yet.
Now you only get 20 seconds.
Well, Don's finding out how to bring his inner voice out to the masses. I'm going over to Bill Biko. Bill, if they don't know who you are, what's your 30-second introduction?
30 seconds. I don't know if I can do that. Let's see what I can run with.
25.
Hey, I'm Bill Biko. I'm from The Educated Landlord. I've been a landlord for almost 20 years. I've had over 1,500 tenants, lots of experience in the good, the bad, the ugly of being a landlord and everything that goes along with it. How was that?
Quick to the point. Love it. Love it. Don, do we have your voice back? No, we don't have your voice yet, buddy. You just keep playing around and keep talking, and when you cut us off, I'll let you know and we can hear you. My name is MacKenzie Wilson. I'm fortunate enough to be your guys' host here at the Alberta Landlord community, both on Facebook. We also on Mighty Networks, which is our private community, which has a better archive of great questions and content. And the host for the show, I've been a landlord in Alberta for since 2016, and I have a tenant screening course as well. So there we are, a good diverse panel. Let's get into some questions. And folks, say hi where you're coming in from. I've got a couple comments in here right now. I got Christine. Christine, hey, good to see you there. As always from Langley, Alberta, or Langley, BC, with properties in Lethbridge, Alberta. And everyone as we tune in, we'll say hi to you. So I grabbed the most popular questions off of our Facebook over the last 28 days. So going back a little ways here, that generated some real good interest. And I'm gonna add a screen share here. Ooh, that's a bit small. So let's see if I can make that easier to read. How's that? Is that legible for you guys to see? Can you guys read that?
Almost.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
it's not bad still. Okay, fair enough. Well, you know what? I'll use my descriptive words here. Whoops. So Rachel asked a question. She saw someone post in in their local mom group about their landlord. The point of the story here, this person had their fridge break down. They sent an email to the landlord. The landlord said, "Yeah, I'll get a person out to repair and fix it." And the tenant's like, "Great, I've got a friend coming over my property to supervise the repair. It's supposed to be from noon to 2 that she had her friend there. But what happened was that repair company actually came in at 9 a.m. the next day, and the tenant or the landlord already provided access, did the repair, and then left the keys to the unit underneath the front door mat. And the tenant wasn't very happy about this, as she made arrangements for her friend to supervise the service tech on site. Now she's crying foul, and that there wasn't 24-hour notice given to a fridge not working. So this was a pretty interesting conversation. It garnered almost 2,000 people reached, so pretty quick there. And I'm going to throw this conversation to you guys. So I'm just going to go back so I can see what I'm doing here. Fridge is down. This person doesn't have a fridge. They're not happy with their landlord, even though the landlord fixed it in less than 24 hours the next morning. Was this handled correctly? Do they need right of access? Do they need 24-hour notice? Andrea, since you're top of my list here, I'm going to go to you first. What's your thoughts on the situation and how it's handled?
Well, most of us consider a fridge not working an emergency, including Riverside Appliance, who makes a priority of it to try to get there same day, if at all possible. So, you know, if they hadn't gone in quickly and it took a few days, then they're going to be crying foul about all the groceries that were ruined. Yeah. So you can't have it both ways here. And I don't know why some tenants feel like they have to have somebody there when somebody comes into the home. But I make a point of saying that, you know, all the tradespeople that we use and companies that we use, they're bonded, licensed, insured. You know, nobody's going to be stealing or rifling through your panty drawer. You know, the main thing is we got it done. We got it done quickly. Sorry, there was a miscommunication, but isn't it great that you got your fridge fixed? So,
yeah, you kind of nailed it right. I mean, food's going to spoil with the fridge, and that could be easily a couple $100 worth of food and goods, right? To have that go bad if it does spoil. So yeah, I would say the same thing. It got fixed right away, and yeah, I guess the flip side, she did try to arrange someone to be there, but you can't always predict when somebody else's schedule for a repair person is going to be there. Dawn, what do you make of this on the eviction side of the business? Is this a legitimate complaint from the tenant?
No, it's not. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Loud and clear. We have you.
Hey!
Great technology.
It's something right. No, hey, no, it's not a legitimate complaint on the tenant's behalf. If we were at court and that story, the judge would say, "Didn't you want your fridge fixed?" And that would be the end of it. So
simple enough. And since I got you here, Don, was 24 hours notice required in this? Like, is this
no,
considered an emergency?
This would be considered an emergency. So 24-hour notice would not be. I mean, in 24 hours, the materials or the products inside that fridge would start warming up, and there'd be loss of food and stuff, which the landlord would not be responsible for, but he does need to help mitigate whatever losses that there is, you know. And certainly I think they acted on good faith, and certainly if I was the landlord, I'd be very happy that it happened that way, and if I was a tenant, I'd be equally as happy.
Yeah, that it got fixed and repaired quite quickly. So Bill, we answered a lot already. Do you got anything you want to add to the situation?
I love both their answers.
Yeah.
How's that?
Simple.
You know, it was a lose-lose scenario for the landlord in this case. As Andrea pointed out, tenant would have been upset if the food would have gone bad and it took 2 or 3 days to get a technician in, which isn't unreasonable. So it's great that a fridge technician can get there basically next day as soon as possible. And as Don pointed out, it's like, it was done in good faith. It wasn't done spitefully to sneak in there and rifle through their stuff. It was done to get an issue fixed. So good job, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking in this situation, we didn't need a 24-hour notice. How do we define that line where we do need a 24-hour notice and we don't need a 24-hour notice? Who wants to take this question?
Well, I'll start to that. That's the line is quite easily defined. If it's going to cause more damage to either the tenant's belongings or the landlord's belongings, then it's an emergency. It has to be fixed, and that includes things like water pipe bursting or a valve going as the water's going everywhere. Certainly, if the place is on fire, we're not going to wait a day. And stuff like this fridge. I mean, it's more common sense is what I think the law is built on, or supposedly built on what a reasonable person would do, and a reasonable person would find those things as a emergency and work right away to mitigate those.
Okay. Andrea, I know you deal with over 200 properties that you manage. So if you find yourself in a situation where you deem it as an emergency, how do you protect yourself as the property manager with documentation and your communication with the tenant if you're going to go in on an emergency basis? What do you do to let the tenant know that and put that in writing? Whoa, going to mute you there.
So
okay, got it done.
Typically what we do is normally it's the tenant that's contacting us for the emergency. And so we let them know that that our response time is normally less than an hour. So, just confirming that somebody's going to be there, because when there's an active water leak or something major going on, we need to take care of it right away to prevent loss, like Donald said, to either the homeowner or to the tenant. So typically in emergency situations, people are quite happy to be there, right? Now, the only other emergency that I would say, and I think we talked a little bit about this on our last call, is sometimes you have situations where somebody like the RCMP calls you to do what's called a welfare check. Now, of course, we value the RCMP's time, so we do try to get there in a timely manner to provide access. That would also kind of be considered like an emergency because there's a higher authority that's requesting entry. And so that's what we do. And in that case, nobody had heard from the tenant, and she did end up to be deceased. So, there was no fallout from that.
Yeah, no, quite obviously. So there's different degrees of emergencies we've kind of talked about. I'm thinking more so with this example of a fridge that's quit working and potential spoiling hundreds of dollars worth of food. It doesn't need to be addressed within the hour. Also, if they keep their fridge doors closed, they can maintain temperature for some period of time. Do you send an email right away or put something in writing that, hey, I'm going over to your property, please be aware we want to get this fixed as quickly as possible? So in case there's some complaints or follow-up from the tenant, you've already documented your next steps. Is there a warranty value of that? Or
typically stuff is done either by text or by phone. I find that if it's an emergency, somebody's actually on the phone. So, normally we don't have to make a whole bunch of notes around it because people are happy to see you. They're not going to try and fight you about it, like in this scenario.
Right, and you've talked to them, you've got verbal permission to come in because they say, hey, I have this problem, I need you to look at it right away kind of scenario.
Well, you don't even need verbal permission. If you deem it to be an emergency, you're going in. There's no conversation about it.
Okay.
So I think sometimes that people kind of pussyfoot around it and they're like, oh, is it okay if I come? No, I am going. You have to be firm with people. I am going in. So here's another scenario. We just took over management of a property that's an hour outside of Red Deer, and there was an active water leak, and we could not get a hold of the other tenant that's on the other side of the fourplex where we believe the water to be coming in. So we actually drilled out the lock to get access to the unit so we could stop the leak. And so what we did is we obviously had to change the lock. So we left the keys with a neighbor, left a note on the door to explain what happened and why, and no issues. So I find that most people are reasonable. And if they have an issue with it, like this person did, I think it's pretty darn petty.
Yeah, perfect. I like that. And you did do some documentation on site with a note at the door. So awesome. Okay, let's grab to the next question here. Okay, Rachel seems to be a hot topic of conversation here. Let me see if you guys can read that. No, if I can make this bigger. Oh, all right. I'll read it out anyways. So she's got a tenant that is demanding to know why she's not willing to sign a new lease. She knows she's not legally owed to or legally responsible or required to give an explanation for not renewing a lease. However, she feels that that he won't stop pestering her until she provides him with an answer. Now, this conversation hit over 2,000 people looking at it with an engagement, had 77 comments, so it was really a popular one, and the community did a very good job of providing the right course of action. If you guys are not willing to renew a tenant, how do you guys handle your communication with that tenant? Bill, I haven't heard from you in a bit, so I'll let you go first with this one.
Yeah, I'm very quiet. That's why. So it's you've got to have a reason why you're getting rid of the tenant. If they're a great tenant and they're doing everything wonderful, you wouldn't be getting rid of them. If they're a less than great tenant and you're getting rid of them, you don't really have to tell them why you're not renewing. So why would you risk getting more aggression out of them by providing them extra ammo or extra ammunition? I'd basically stick with we've just decided not to renew the lease. That's all I'm going to share at this point, and move on.
Yeah, and to provide further information to this specific scenario, she had actually given an offer to renew, and then I guess he was very aggressive, just not very good at communicating, and rather aggressive dealing with her. And she just decided, at this point, I don't want to renew. And it was still he had been given, I believe, 30 days. She extended the lease by 15 days to give him 30 days to find a new place. So, and everyone said that, like, she felt she had to give him a reason, but I've heard you say this, Bill, many times. You give a person an inch, they'll take a mile off you, and the type of folks that are aggressive in dealing with you will probably be in that bucket of to take as much advantage as they can of you. And if you provide more information, they're going to pick holes through it, and you're going to dig yourself down a hole that will be difficult to deal with should they fight you in court. Andrea, anything for you to add on this?
Yes, I agree with Bill. The less information, the better. You really don't have to give a reason. And, being a property manager gives you that extra level of like, oh, I don't really know. The owner just said.
Yeah, third party to blame.
Maybe they, want to move into it. I'm not really sure. They just said that we're done, right? So.
Yeah, I like what you brought up there about that. You're almost third party. You're blaming a third party, kind of removing yourself from like the friction point. And if you're a private owner and you own the property and the tenant knows this, you can say, what, I brought in a partner, and my partner doesn't want to renew, and that was their decision. I'm just supporting it. You can also provide that as an avenue as well. Don, anything to add to us from a perspective? Like how do we keep ourselves out of trouble? Is there any other wording you'd add to this situation if you chose not to renew with a tenant?
Muted.
Oh, I have you on mute. Okay, you're unmuted.
Oh, okay. The host has unmuted your mic. Perfect. I've certainly used the exact same thing that you've talked about there, that I blame somebody else, even though somebody else might be me with a different face. and most people don't know. Even if they knew I was the only owner, I've done the same thing as you said. It's a committee decision. I don't know what the reasons are, but the lease is over, and we expect you to leave. Please do, and please leave it as clean as you possibly can. And I always add a smile. I try to do everything with a smile, and that often diffuses things.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, one thing too, I know in Alberta by legislation with a fixed term lease, we don't actually need to provide written notice. So, this is a courtesy going above and beyond. I know practically speaking, if you don't give notice, it makes it very difficult for a person to move out very quickly. It just simply won't happen. So it is unwritten rule that they need this notice to kind of make the logistics work. But it is a courtesy that a notice is not required because it is a fixed term. Both parties should be aware when this term comes to an end. So you can also put that within your letter saying, as a courtesy, notice is not required on terminating a fixed term, but we want to let you know that we've decided to go a different way and not renew your lease. And we wish you the best of luck. Please be out by this date. We expect the property to be as the condition it was when you moved in, clean and neat and tidy. So fantastic.
From the eviction side, if they don't move at the end of that term, then we go into what's called overholding, and that's a fairly easy one to handle, simply because you've got a lease that says it's done in the next whatever date, and they're not gone. So, and the other trick is not to take any money from them for that following month. So
yes, don't accept the money if you've got an overhead tenant, and have communication documents saying, hey, I'm not renewing. And very clear that communication. Sean just mentioned a good point here. Actually, I really like this, and I've seen this come up before. So Sean McKay wrote, a tenant that lives in my suite has always said, text me, you don't need to give me 24-hour notice. If you need to do something, as long as I text them, is there any possible repercussion if entering the same day? So I can't remember, Dawn, if this was you or might have been Rob, or both of you gentlemen had mentioned to me, is if we have a situation, I'm going to drop this share screen so we can see each other a little bit better. A tenant, if you don't give proper 24-hour notice, and tenant's given you over text, say they've given you permission to come in same day for repair, I've heard one of you guys say that that tenant can actually go through and withdraw that permission an hour before you're showing up, and you no longer can enter, even though you had, say, written permission earlier in that day. Is that true? Or if they've given you permission same day, do you still have right to enter right to the very end?
No, if they get a hold of you before time and say, listen, it's not going to work for me for you to be here at this time. Can we make it tomorrow or whatever? You have to honor that.
Okay. So there's a bit of danger doing the texting game. Like for most part, most of us, we're all on the same page. We want to get something resolved quickly. Tenants are happy to work with us to get problems resolved on a timely manner. But by operating that way without doing proper notice, should the tenant revoke their written thing, it can kind of leave us in a bind, is what you're saying there, Don?
Yeah.
Okay. Good question, Sean. I really do like that. To be truthful, I do text and all that as well. It's a much more convenient way of communicating. I typically, though, if I have to get access to within the suite, I still try to give them 24-hour notice because that is by law. Though I do know I'm probably put myself in a bit of position in the sense that I don't do the traditional 24-hour notice. I just do it via the most convenient communication method. But again, most tenants don't really know that there's a specific requirements for written notice, and it hasn't come to bite me yet in the butt per se. So right on. Glad you like that. So Andrea or Bill, is there anything you want to add on that kind of given notice to entry on a property? Is there anything that maybe you want to share that might help people out? Certain ways you should do it or shouldn't do it, or just lessons learned from doing it over the years?
Lessons learned. It's almost case by case, and it depends on what the scenario is. I mean, if a tenant wants something fixed badly enough, they'll let you in 6 hours. If it's something that, it's going to take 24 to 36 to 48 hours to get a technician or somebody in to look at, they got to have a reasonable amount of understanding that people aren't going to drop everything to come do stuff unless it is some kind of emergency. So, and I've had everything from furnaces quit in the middle of winter where tenants have been ecstatic to see somebody there in 6 hours, to other situations where it's stuff that is 72 hours before they can get there to do anything.
So let me be more focused on my question. Let's say we have a reason to enter the unit, say maybe an inspection that the tenant may not be happy with. In that situation, do you guys follow more of a formal notification process?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. Yeah, we're all shaking our heads. Okay, Andrea, same for you then, hey? Yeah, okay. I like what Christine wrote here. She says, I have in my lease, we can serve notice through email. Now, here's a good question, and maybe this is for the folks that have been through the eviction process quite regularly in the course in RTDRS, so maybe Don, this might be directed at you. I know the RTA is a little bit archaic. It's not quite caught up to current times, especially with the convenience of communication that we have now. If we have something that technically contradicts what the RTA says, but it's not, practically speaking, it's something that we all do, how does that uphold with in the RTDRS if you're going? Like if I say we can serve notice through email, will that hold up in going to the court?
Well, it'll depend which judge we get, but for the most part, they need to follow what's in the RTA. So if the RTA says that's a written notice 24 hours in advance, that's what's expected for most of the judges. Some of them would say, well, if you've been doing it this way and you've got proof of that, so you show several emails where you gave 24-hour notice, and there was no problem on the tenant side, would give some weight then to what you're saying. Usually don't get into this kind of problem until the end of the tenancy when the tenant is upset for some reason and now is going to enforce the full extent of the law and deny you everything that they can deny you, especially if they're hiding something. So that's when things get testy. But again, they can bring that up in the hearing, but if it's not really have anything to do with why you're there, if you're there because they missed payments or you're there for some other reason, it wouldn't matter how the notice was served.
Okay, I like that, and I think the key thing you've highlighted there, Don, is it has to be the notice, or the way the notice was provided, has to be related to the reason why you're actually in court. So if you've got late payments and arrears, and the person's complaining about entry to do a repair, it probably is not any value to that situation and not going to be a problem. And the judge won't look at that as in favor of the tenant and throw something else out, because that would be silly.
If they're going to look at the emails, you would need to have your emails have the items that the RTA says you need to have. So you would have to have the date and the address and whatever your source of signature is going to be, name and date of the name of the tenant, the date, the address of the unit, your address, the reason why you're there, and your address that you would be contacted at. And I mean, your signature would be the
email signature.
Email signature, but so as long as you have those things on there, actually, it would be a proper written notice.
I will update my email signature now that you mentioned that. That's a good idea. So yeah, so long as you carry the key components of what should be in the notice, whether you do it a written notice taped to a door or you do it electronically through an email, for the most part, you should see no issues with that, unless it wasn't maybe perhaps served properly. I know there's another word that you guys use is setting precedence on how communication's been done in the past. So if you communicate on a regular basis through email or say through text, and then you've provided the proper notice with all those key components you need to have inside that notice, and you do it through text, and that's been the perceived way of communication for the last 6 months with this tenant. That's actually, I've seen that where it's been accepted as well. Listen to both yourself, Don, Rod Bow, and then of course with Brad down here in Calgary with Servit as well. So Okay, fantastic. And then Tammy shared a really cool comment here as well. So this is pretty positive to see. She said, this has recently been approved here in BC as well. So you can actually do notice through email. So that's cool. All right, let's get on to the next question here. Okay, this one hopefully is easier to read because it's bigger text. Do that. So Kathleen writes, is it not law that a landlord is to place a security or damage deposit in a bank within 2 days of receiving it? And this was surprisingly a really question that got over 2,000 people's interest here. So, Andrea,
Yes.
your thoughts on this? How do you manage 3 days? Okay, Don's throwing that in there. How do you manage when you receive a security deposit? What's the logistics behind the scene? How do you organize it?
Well, we have a separate account that we collect all our damage deposits to. So when the tenant sends us their damage deposit, it goes into a separate email into a separate bank account. So it's basically immediate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, with technology nowadays, doing an e-transfer and that stuff, it is almost immediate. This probably is more of a back with checks if someone still do the check thing. But what is the actual law? Don, you said it's 3 days. The damage deposit has to be deposited within receiving it?
Yes, it's 3 days. It was 2 days for a lot of years, but they changed that, I'm going to say probably 10 years back, to 3 days.
Okay, simple enough then. Bill.
Hi.
Yeah, 6 thumbs up, good enough. Do you want to add to this? I don't
Well,
know much more
the
to
key
add
thing
to
is it's supposed to be put in a separate account from the regular accounts. And, it used to be of importance because theoretically there was interest paid on these. This is back to being one of those archaic rules at this point because, yes, you need it protected, not in the same accounts as the other stuff, but not so much for the interest anymore because nobody has to pay interest anymore. So.
Yes, and I know we talked about this on a previous shop talk, but if you give me 10 more seconds here, I found the government website. So let me do this and share screen and do this and do this. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
So we're on Service Alberta here, and we haven't had to pay interest on holding a security deposit since January 1st of 2009. So, so since we don't have to pay interest on it, is it still pretty critical having that separate account, or if I'm just being maybe a slightly more lazy landlord, I'll just put it with my account where I run my expenses. Can I get myself into hot water by doing that?
Yeah, $1,500 fine. If Service Alberta decided to go after you, which would be highly unlikely, but the idea is that it goes into a recognized security deposit account. All of your security deposits could go into one account. Certainly, you just have to have accounting for it, and it's supposed to be an interest-bearing account. The interest certainly never covers what your expenses are, so you always got to add to it. But that's the rules for. I'm sure Andrea can straighten me out if I'm on the wrong path here.
Well, Andrew, with your 200 doors, have you ever had issues with someone complaining about how you've stored or held a security deposit?
Well, no, because RECA monitors all that, so it's checked every year. So, yeah.
Simple enough then.
Simple.
So lesson learning as a private landlord, it's probably a word of the wise to open up a separate account, call it security deposit, dump the money in, forget about it, don't touch it, keep it separate from your operating accounts.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be a trust account, and that's not something that a normal person would have or be able to get. So you're allowed to name your account. So I just named mine the security deposit trust account, and that's where it goes in. So it's not a trust account; it's a regular savings account. But so I label it that, and I've had no problems. So.
Simple enough then. Okay. Very cool. All right, let's get back to the next question. Okay, this one is a little bit longer. This one's kind of interesting. So I'll make it better to read. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
So Allison Moreau writes here. This was just recent. Actually, this was just today. So she's got a few properties. One of her properties, her tent is actually quite handy. They're good at actually fixing things, and they have a proven track record. So she received some photos from the upstairs tenant staying at the basement tent that just repaired their entire deck due to his foot going through a soft spot last week. They hadn't been notified, and he's already pretty much done replacing the deck. And he's got a before and after picture. So here's the before picture, some older wood. After, nice, brand new, expensive composite boards. So the question is, what did they do in this situation? There was no notification. I'm pretty confident that the replacement is safe, but do we have to? But do we have to have the deck checked? Do we have to reimburse them, go half? They haven't asked us for anything as of yet. Okay, let me get back to you guys.
Didn't he fix something else too? And as I read this a little earlier.
Quite possibly. I started reading. I didn't get through all the comments, so I don't know if there's more to it. But I thought this is a pretty substantial repair because, well, especially with wood right now, wood in alone was really expensive up in May there. It has come down in recent weeks now, pricing. But you know, they spend $500 on material alone, not even including labor, and they put a whole new deck top on there. Like, how would you guys handle this? So, Andrea, actually, no, Bill. I haven't heard you in a bit. Bill, how would you deal with this?
I would wait to hear from the tenant and see what they're expecting. You know, it's an unauthorized repair. I didn't recommend that they could change the material. I would have wanted to have inspected and possibly got a quote from some of my people to make sure I knew what the costs were going to be before we jumped into anything. Mm-hmm. I'd basically just wait to see what they came back with. You know, if they said, you know, we're doing this for free, I'm ecstatic, you know, because it's their place and they're excited about having it done. If they come back and say, you know, if we got half of it back, we'd be excited. You know, I'd probably still be excited. If they said, you know, I want $4,000 because the wood cost me $2,000 and it was $2,000 worth of my labor, it's like, no. We just kind of reverse from there. So that's simply how I play it out, just to feel it out. I would want to make sure I was getting value for my money out of this. And I'm not really excited when tenants do their own labor on a property unless I have a pretty good handle on what they're doing.
Yeah, right. I mean, she said in this situation, she's familiar with the tenant, and they're actually handy. But we've definitely heard of the stories where a tenant goes in and says, "Oh, I'm a great painter," and you get ripples in the wall from the layers of paint they've splashed on, and looks like a kid's drawing. So, Andrea, if you're in this position and you found out, how would you handle the situation?
Well, I don't think that any of my owners would be wanting to pay for any such repairs, especially for such a high-end finish. But from the picture of the deck, I did not see any hole where somebody stepped through, first of all. And if they really stepped through and hurt themselves, don't you think that they would call you to say, hey, I just twisted my ankle, I just got 5 stitches in my foot, or something to that extent, right?
Right.
So to me, this sounds like somebody wanted a new deck and they just went and did it.
Okay.
So anytime I get a phone call from a tenant that's like, oh, I slipped on the ice 3 weeks ago, how about you comp me my rent? It's like, well, if you slipped on the ice and fell and hurt yourself, don't you think you would have called me 3 weeks ago? Like, so
you answer with a question and you bring back what a reasonable person would do, and yes. It's not a very reasonable request. And I also like that you, looking at the picture, I didn't see a hole the foot would fit through in that picture. So it looks to me, I like this, I'm going to do an upgrade. So and if I had this situation happen, and there's 2 scenarios here. If I don't know if they're competent or not, I wouldn't be very happy because it could be in fact damaging my property and cost me more money down the road to fix it. And Sean, you exactly my point here. He goes, permits. You don't know what quality of work's been done, which always means it's more money to fix down the road. If it's the latter scenario where this tenant is in fact comp enough to do the work and they didn't ask permission, like what you said, Bill, same as well. If they're and then you mentioned as well, Andrea, if they're willing to just eat the cost and improve my property a bit, I'm probably okay with that. But I'd still lay the communication that I need to be informed first before any work's done to my property, because I need to prove it. And if I don't get a request first and then the work's done, I will not be compensating. I want to make sure it's very clear understanding or expectation. And Christine, exactly that. I would not pay if the work was not clear to me first. I have been clear about that. So yeah. So kind of
certainly from a eviction standpoint, I get this all the time. This is probably one of the most common things that tenants will say. Well, I just dropped $5,000 or 50. I have one that give us invoices for $50,000 worth of work.
$50K.
And,
wow.
Yeah, and the owner didn't know anything about it. I mean, the guy did some work. He did quite a bit of work, but I wouldn't have ordered it. I wouldn't looking at his work. I certainly wouldn't have used him. But right. In every case, the question is, did the owner give you permission? And almost all of them say, oh, yeah, I told him and he said, yeah. And the owner says, no. And if I was going to give permission, I would have done it in writing. And that's what we look for, is it being done in writing. So that's a good point. If you're going to have a tenant, and I never recommend it, but if you're going to have a tenant do some work, make sure you've got something written, even if it's text messages and emails, and discuss what has to be done or what is going to be done and how much it's going to cost, and have that. If you have it in text messages, it's going to carry weight at court for or against the landlord. Doesn't matter. The truth is the truth, and so that's very important. But I found over the years in my own units that I never, after being burnt 2 or 3 times, I never have a tenant do any work on the house that they're in. I've had electricians and plumbers and stuff, and I've hired them to do work in another unit where they gave me a bill, and I paid that bill. But I never had it in their own unit. Almost every time it's either shoddy, they don't have time to finish it, they don't do it, and you've given them a rent decrease or some money or something to do things, and nothing's done. That's my 2 bits worth.
Exactly. And Christine, you have me smiling so much. I love this. What I said to one tenant, you can't spend my money, and that's totally it. Yeah. If you're going to go down this route and you've got a bona fide contractor, tradesperson living in your property that is in fact credible, or red seal, or plumber, electrician, if they are going to do work and you're going to credit them back, and then they're going to probably give you you should be getting a discount if you're going to go down this road. Also, it wouldn't be advantageous to doing it, but don't do a rent decrease. Keep it separate. Collect that full month's rent, and then pay them separately. The reason why you want to do this is your folks are looking to expand your portfolio and get qualified from the bank. If you decrease on paper your revenue for that property, you've got less to qualify with. So you want to keep those monthly rents as high as possible. If you need to take them to the bank to qualify for your next mortgage, and pay them separately. Don't do a rent decrease. So a word of advice for expanding and investing more. Any more to add on to that? Is that pretty much it? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well, we're at the end of the hour. I haven't received any other questions that came in, so it's been a little bit quieter one, probably because people think that we're still on vacation, which I'm okay with. Is there any other topics or ways to wrap up here before we end the show? Is there anything that you guys want to share?
Should we talk about your mustache for a while?
Yeah, there we go.
I could. Well, so what happened was I asked my wife to shave my head, and she said, well, if I shave it, I want to give you a mustache. And I was like, I can't see the back of my head, so I'll take the mustache. And here we are today. So it's not a really thrilling story, but here we are. Christine threw a bit of a bit while we end the show here. I had a contractor live at my place. He billed and I billed, separate businesses. Yeah, and that's perfect. Keep them completely separate lines. Perfect. Other than that, is there Any real estate news you guys want to talk about or share? I'm just trying to think. Wood's come down in pricing, which is good to see. That was a bit nerve-wracking, even though I don't have any projects on the go right now. Andrea, I know how are you doing with being the realtor now? I know you've recently got that. Keeping busy with that?
The first-time home buyer market's still pretty active, as is the investment market. So I actually met with some people from Ontario. So Ontario investors are headed this way because to Ontarians, Alberta is on sale. They have made so much money with the markets rising in Ontario that they can't afford to buy anything in Ontario, make it cash flow. So now they're coming to Alberta. So
cool.
The laws here are better.
Yes, that too. Absolutely.
They're much friendlier game to play. Sean asked a great question here. So Sean, how about a quick word of advice to a newbie investor on expanding their portfolio? I'm a realtor, so it helps my knowledge of the market, but anything would be appreciated. So if someone's trying to expand the portfolio, what would be some words of suggestion?
Well, I'd say once you run out of your own money, you're going to need to partner with other people who have money but no time or real estate education. So don't be afraid to tell people about what you do, just in casual conversation. So when somebody says, hey, what did you do this weekend? You can say, well, I was working on my rental property. I made such fantastic returns last year that I'm looking to buy another one.
Yeah. Bill, what was your pitch to raise money?
Every conversation becomes a real estate conversation, even if it's just a brief toss in, like Andrea mentioned there. Those that are interested will ask for more information. Those that aren't, you just carry on. I guess the other thing to add to that, if you're looking at expanding your portfolio, cash flow is huge. You got to make sure you're getting lots of cash flow to properties. So, as qualifying gets tighter and tighter, it's going to become even more important, and it just helps you through the ups and downs over time. So, that would be my advice for newer investors. Make sure you're getting cash flow. You're not buying for appreciation or hopes and dreams. You're buying for cash flow and hope the rest comes with it.
So, to add on to that, congratulations, Christine. She said she's closing on her 4th house in Alberta. Very, very cool. Way to go, Christine. One thing I'd add on too is setting the expectations. Usually when people are looking at real estate as an investment, they're usually looking at something that's typically compared to the stock market, something that's a little more stable and stronger returns for the security it offers. It is going through asking the question back to them. Well, if you're what are your returns today on your current investments, and if they're in some mutual funds or some what do you call those pre-picked? Yeah, I guess they are mutual funds. You get the pension plans with your company. What has been your returns in the last 2 or 3 years, or what was your latest annual return? It typically doesn't match what you can get in real estate if you've done your numbers right. And yeah. All right. Oh, here's a good question. How many of you have money partners? Andrea, I know you've got money partners. Yeah. Bill, do you have money partners?
That's so many over the years. It's the only way you can really expand after a certain point. You run out of your own money at a certain time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have money partners too. I definitely could not have done it without them. So, yeah, I think the big takeaway I was thinking about that, Sean, is when someone's asking about investing or you've got a newbie investor, is always turning that conversation back to the person who has the money is, okay, what's your best options for investing? Here's what real estate can do, and typically go through the returns. When you guys look for deals out there, you guys are typically probably aiming for in around that 20% or more. Give 10% to yourself and 10% to the investor, because if they don't get anything over, I'd say at least 8%, does it look like a really good investment for that money partner? Yeah, cool. All right, folks, well, let's wrap it up there. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Please throw some comments in Facebook and Money Networks on this YouTube video, on this live stream after. We're looking for ways to make this better for you guys. If there is maybe a form that you guys can submit questions to, that's really easily online. Is that of value? Ways we can take the show forward and provide the best value going forward for everyone. Enjoy your summer. I'm not sure if I'll do a show next week. I'll leave that out right now. I definitely will do another one here in August. I do love doing this once in a while, but still trying to work on some stuff in the background to make things better for you guys. So appreciate everyone tuning in. How can everyone get a hold of you guys? Andrea, what's the best way to get a hold of you if they got questions for you up in Central Alberta?
Well, I'm on Facebook, as you know, and on the group. So feel free to send me a messenger or give me a call or send me an email. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Perfect. And Don, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Well, certainly I'm on Facebook as well, and can be attacked through there. And my phone number is 780-974-8427. Throw that out. And of course, by email, text message. I'm like Andrea. I'm easy to get a hold of.
Perfect. And Bill, you have it right on your name, theeducatedlandlord.com. Is that the best way for folks to find you?
That's one of the ways. I'm in the group, Facebook as well. Educatedlandlord.com is a great way to get a hold of me, and a bunch of information and resources there. So,
perfect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks guys for spending your time with me tonight and helping everybody out. This is the only show dedicated to landlording in Alberta, the Alberta Landlord Shoptalk show. I'm your host, MacKenzie Wilson. We'll see you guys on another Wednesday, maybe this month or next month, as we get through this summer vacation. Take care, everyone.
Have a great night.
Nice to see you.